Welcome back to the English Talk Community podcast. I'm Julia, and I'm really happy you're here with me today. Whether this is your first episode or you've been following for a while, thank you for choosing this time to focus on your English. What we're going to do in this episode is not just study the language, we're going to feel it. Through real stories and clear examples, I'll guide you in a way that helps your listening improve naturally, while also giving you moments to reflect, connect emotionally, and think in English. And if you're someone who's been struggling with fast conversations or feeling left out in group discussions, this episode is especially for you. Now, before we begin the stories, I want to ask you something. Be honest with yourself as you think about this. Have you ever been in a situation where everyone around you was speaking English and you understood the words, but somehow you were lost? Maybe you were in a meeting or a class or even just hanging out with friends. People were laughing, talking, making comments, and everything moved so fast. You heard the words, but you couldn't keep up. You couldn't find the right moment to say something. You couldn't catch the main idea. And at the end, you were just sitting there, quiet, thinking, why is this so hard for me? I thought I knew this vocabulary. It's such a common feeling, and I want you to know, you're not alone. You are definitely not the only one who experiences this. I've heard this same story from people in Brazil, in Turkey, in Egypt, in Korea, in Italy. It doesn't matter where you're from. When you're learning a new language, especially English, fast conversations can feel like a wave crashing over you. You try to hold on, but the wave pulls you under. And then you think, maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe English just isn't for me. But let me stop you right there. It is for you. It just takes the right kind of practice. You don't need to understand every single word. You need to train your ear to understand the rhythm, the flow, and the intention behind the words. That's why I want you to listen to this episode, not just with your ears, but with your full attention. Let the stories wash over you, and allow yourself to feel what's happening, not just translate it in your mind. And more importantly, don't stress. This is a safe space. You don't have to speak perfectly. You don't even have to speak today. You just have to listen, imagine, and connect with the situations. That's how learning becomes real. Not when it's just about memorizing grammar, but when you understand how the language lives in real moments, in real people's lives. Now, let me ask you something else. Have you ever wanted to say something in English, but your mind just froze? You knew the words, you've studied the expressions, but suddenly, nothing came out. You watched the conversation go on without you. You smiled, you nodded, you pretended to understand, but inside, you felt disconnected. That happened to me too. Yes, me. Before I could speak English the way I do today, I had so many of those silent moments. I would think of a response 5 minutes later, too late. I would walk away from a conversation thinking, ugh, why didn't I say that? It was frustrating, and sometimes, honestly, it made me feel small. But with time, I learned something powerful. The conversation moves fast, but you don't have to rush. You can slow down inside your mind. You can train your listening so that the next time you're in that moment, you're ready. You've heard it before, you've felt it before, and your brain is prepared. That's exactly why I want to start today's episode by inviting you into some of these real situations. We're going to hear the story of someone who faced the same kind of challenge. Her name is Sarah, and she's someone I admire a lot. Sarah didn't grow up speaking English. She studied it later, just like many of you. And even though she works in an English-speaking environment now, she still had a moment when she realized, I need to understand this better. And I know you might relate to her story. But before we go there, I want you to do a little mental check-in. Think of one situation in your life where you felt frustrated with your English. Don't push the memory away. Let it come. Was it a meeting? A class? A dinner with coworkers? A phone call? Now just breathe and say to yourself, it's okay. I'm learning. I'm growing. You are not behind. You are exactly where you need to be to take the next step. And let me tell you a little secret. Sometimes the people who speak the fastest aren't the ones with the best communication. Communication is not about speed. It's about connection. And today, we are going to build that connection between your English and the real world, between your brain and your heart, between your story and the stories I'll share. So as you listen today, I want you to notice 3 things. First, listen for the emotions behind the words. Second, pay attention to the rhythm of how people speak in real life. And third, ask yourself, what would I say in this situation? Even if it's just a simple sentence. If something feels too fast, rewind. If something sounds new, pause and repeat. This episode is here for you. It's not a test. It's a space for learning, for listening, and for building confidence, step by step, story by story. Let's take this journey together. I'll be right here with you the whole time. Let me tell you about Sarah. She's someone who inspires me every time I think about her journey with English. Sarah is a marketing manager at a growing tech company. She's smart, creative, very passionate about what she does, and she's always full of energy when she talks about new ideas. But just like many of us, English wasn't her first language, and for a long time, that made her feel like she couldn't show her full personality in professional conversations. Last year, she went on a business trip to London. It was a big step for her. She had been preparing for weeks, reading emails, learning industry-specific terms, practicing key phrases, and reviewing vocabulary. She felt ready, confident, excited. But nothing could have truly prepared her for what happened next. On the second day of the conference, she joined a group of professionals from different companies. They were standing around with coffee cups in hand, casually talking about their latest projects. It wasn't a formal meeting. It wasn't a presentation. It was one of those in-between moments, where the real networking happens, the kind of moment where strong professional relationships are built, not through PowerPoint slides, but through quick, casual conversations. Sarah joined the circle, smiled, and listened. At first, everything sounded fine. She heard familiar words. She understood the general topics: new software, marketing campaigns, client feedback. But as the conversation flowed, something changed. The pace picked up. People started using idioms, slang, inside jokes. The group laughed. They nodded. They interrupted each other, jumped from one point to the next. Sarah was trying to follow, but her brain felt like it was running a race it hadn't trained for. She told me later, I knew the words, I had seen them before, but it was all happening too fast. I couldn't catch the meaning behind the words. I didn't know where one idea ended and the next began. She stood there trying to focus, but it felt like the words were flying past her. She didn't know when to jump in or how to ask for clarification without stopping the flow. She smiled, she nodded. She even laughed when everyone else laughed, but inside, she felt like she was pretending. She wasn't really in the conversation. She was next to it, and that's a very lonely feeling. That night, back in her hotel room, Sarah felt frustrated, not because she didn't try, but because she had worked so hard and still felt invisible in that moment. But here's the thing I admire most about Sarah. She didn't give up. She didn't let that experience define her. She used it. She asked herself, what exactly made that conversation hard for me? And the answer wasn't grammar. It wasn't vocabulary. It was rhythm. It was flow. It was the speed and unpredictability of real-life speech. So she made a decision. She started listening to real conversations in English every single day. Not the slow, textbook-style audio, but real podcasts just like this one. Podcasts where people talk the way they do in real life, fast, emotional, full of nuance. She didn't understand everything at first. Sometimes she had to pause and go back. Sometimes she had to repeat the same episode 3 or 4 times. But little by little, things started to change. She began to recognize patterns. She noticed the kinds of phrases people use to interrupt politely, like, actually, can I add something? Or, sorry, just to jump in. She started hearing how people transition from one topic to another. She heard the small expressions that don't appear in textbooks, like, you know what I mean, or that makes sense. And then she started reading too. Not grammar books, but business articles, blog posts, marketing case studies. She read them out loud sometimes, just to feel the rhythm in her own mouth. She tried to repeat full sentences, not just words. She wanted to train her brain to think in complete thoughts, not translations. Weeks went by, then months. She didn't notice the changes right away, but slowly she started participating more during meetings. She stopped avoiding group conversations. She began to feel her confidence grow. And one day, something beautiful happened. She was asked to lead a meeting, in English. A year before, that idea would have terrified her. But now, she was ready. She prepared her key points. She thought about the transitions. She made space in her speaking for questions. And when she finally delivered that meeting, she did it. With calm, clear confidence. Her colleagues understood her. They engaged with her. She wasn't just included, she was leading. When she told me about it, she didn't say, "I spoke perfectly." She said, "I didn't freeze. I didn't hide. I showed up. And I felt like myself." That's what we're really after here, isn't it? Not perfection, but presence. We want to be able to show up in conversations and feel like we're truly there. We want to express our ideas, share our thoughts, ask questions, and connect without fear, without that pressure in the chest that says, "What if I make a mistake?" Sarah still makes mistakes sometimes. We all do. But now she knows how to keep the conversation going. She knows how to ask for clarification when she needs it. And more than anything, she trusts herself to participate. Now I want you to think about Sarah's story in relation to your own life. Have you ever been in a similar situation? Maybe you were with coworkers, classmates, or even at a social gathering. The conversation was moving quickly, and you felt like a silent observer instead of an active participant. Can you remember what that felt like? Where were you? What were people talking about? What was happening inside your mind at that moment? Were you translating? Were you hesitating? Were you feeling invisible? You don't need to be ashamed of that memory. That moment is not a failure. It's a sign that you care, a sign that you want to connect, a sign that you're ready for the next level of learning. And just like Sarah, you can take that moment and turn it into motivation. You can use it to build new habits, new strategies, new courage. Listening to stories like hers helps you see the path ahead. Not a perfect path, but a real one. One where progress happens one sentence at a time. When Sarah decided to improve her listening, she didn't just say, "I'll try harder." She got specific. That's one of the things I really admire about her approach. She didn't wait for the perfect course or the perfect teacher. She took control of her environment. She created opportunities for English to enter her life naturally. No pressure, no performance, just small, intentional steps. One of the first things she did was simple, but powerful. She changed her morning routine. Instead of checking messages or scrolling through social media when she woke up, she played a podcast in English while making her coffee. She didn't sit down with a notebook or try to understand every word. She just let the English be part of her environment. She told me, "I didn't force it, I just listened. I let it flow in the background." This passive exposure started to train her brain. She wasn't translating. She wasn't analyzing. She was simply allowing her ears to get used to the sounds, the speed, and the rhythm of the language. Some mornings she barely paid attention. Other mornings, one sentence would catch her ear, and she'd pause and replay it. But the point wasn't perfection, it was consistency. Then she added another layer to her practice. During her lunch breaks, she started watching short interviews in English, 5 to 10 minutes max. Not lessons. Real interviews. People talking naturally about work, ideas, or daily life. At first, she turned on the subtitles. Not to read everything, but to notice patterns. She'd look for expressions like, "That's a great point," or "from my perspective." These little phrases helped her feel more prepared for similar conversations in her own job. Sarah also started keeping a small notebook, not for grammar rules, but for expressions she liked. One phrase per day, that was her goal. Just one. She wrote it, said it out loud, and then tried to use it in her next conversation. Sometimes it worked, sometimes she forgot, but the act of paying attention to real language made her feel more connected to it. Another thing that made a huge difference for her was listening with intention. Instead of just hearing the words, she asked herself, "What's the purpose of this sentence? What is this person trying to say or do with their words?" This helped her move from basic understanding to deeper comprehension. She wasn't just following the words, she was following the ideas behind them. A few weeks into this new routine, she noticed something. In her next team meeting, someone said something quickly with a bit of slang. Normally, she would have missed it completely. But this time, her brain caught the meaning. She didn't understand every word, but she understood the intent. She was able to respond. Not perfectly, not elegantly, but clearly and calmly. She told me, "That moment was small, but it felt big. I didn't freeze, I didn't panic, I just spoke." That's what practice gives you. Not magic, not immediate fluency, but readiness. It gives your brain something to lean on. A structure, a memory, a little confidence that says, "You've heard this before. You can do this." Over time, Sarah's confidence grew. Not because she memorized long lists of vocabulary, but because she saw results, tiny results. One sentence at a time, one small win after another. That's how real confidence is built, not from perfection, but from progress. She also told me something that really stuck with me. She said, "I stopped chasing native speaker speed. I started listening for clarity, not for speed." And that changed everything, because when you focus on being clear instead of being fast, you start to communicate more, honestly, more effectively. Sarah began speaking in meetings without writing everything down beforehand. She started trusting her instincts. She wasn't afraid of pauses. If she didn't understand something, she simply asked, "Could you repeat that?" Or, "Do you mean?" And those little questions didn't make her look weak. They made her look engaged. I want to pause here and ask you, what's one small habit you could add to your routine, like Sarah did? Could you listen to 5 minutes of English? While you make breakfast? Could you watch a video on your lunch break with subtitles in English? Could you keep a note on your phone with one new phrase a day? You don't need a huge plan. You need one small action. Because the truth is, understanding fast English conversations isn't just about speed. It's about familiarity. When you hear something enough times, it stops feeling foreign. It becomes part of your mental vocabulary. And then, when the moment comes, you're ready. Now I want to take a moment to bring this back to you. Yes, you, listening right now. Maybe while you're walking, driving, cooking, or just sitting somewhere quietly. You've been listening to Sarah's story, and maybe part of it felt familiar. Maybe a small moment reminded you of something you've lived through. I want you to hold on to that. Let's go deeper. Can you think of a time when you were in a conversation, and suddenly, everything felt too fast? Maybe it was a group meeting. Maybe it was just a conversation between friends or coworkers. Maybe it wasn't even in person. Maybe it was online, in a video call or a chat group. You started listening, but the words blurred together. The people around you seemed to understand each other instantly, finishing each other's sentences, reacting quickly. And there you were, silent, trying to catch up. It's a strange kind of silence, isn't it? On the outside, it looks like you're just listening. But on the inside, there's a whole storm. Your mind is working hard, translating, analyzing, trying to guess what will come next. You're asking yourself, what should I say? When should I say it? Will they understand me? Will I sound strange? You feel the pressure build up in your chest. You want to speak, but the words feel stuck. And then the moment passes. Someone changes the subject. The conversation moves on. And you're left with that feeling, that small pain of not being able to participate fully. I've been there. I know that silence. It's not laziness. It's not lack of knowledge. It's something deeper. It's the feeling of not being ready, of not trusting yourself with the language just yet. But I want you to hear this. That moment was not the end of your story. It was just one step on your path. It was a mirror. It showed you where you are now, and it invited you to move forward. You didn't fail. You discovered something. You discovered what you need. Sometimes, that's the most valuable thing a conversation can give us. Not a perfect performance, but a clear reflection. A moment of truth that says, this is what I struggle with. This is what I want to work on. And just like Sarah, you can use that moment. You don't have to push it away or pretend it didn't happen. You can say, yes, that happened, and now I'm going to learn from it. Let's think about what you can do with those memories. Instead of avoiding them, let's observe them together. What exactly made the moment hard? Was it the vocabulary? Was it the speed? Was it the way people interrupted each other? Was it the fear of making a mistake? Be honest with yourself. There's no judgment here. This is a place of learning, a space for reflection. Because when we understand why something feels difficult, we can start building strategies. Maybe you need more exposure to fast conversations. Maybe you need to hear natural dialogue more often, just like what we do here on the podcast. Maybe you need to practice asking follow-up questions like, what do you mean by that? Or can you say that again? Maybe it's about building your confidence, not just in vocabulary, but in your voice. So let's do a short exercise together, just in your mind. I want you to imagine that same situation again, that fast conversation where you felt stuck. Now, instead of staying quiet, picture yourself raising your hand or leaning forward and saying something simple like, "Sorry, could you say that one more time?" Or, "I just want to make sure I understand." Are you saying? Notice how different that feels. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be honest. Most people don't mind repeating themselves. Most people respect someone who wants to understand clearly. When you ask, you're showing that you care. You're showing that you're engaged. And when you speak up, even just a little, you start to rewrite the memory. You begin to see yourself not as an outsider, but as a participant. Now let's go one step further. I want you to think about how you could prepare for the next time something like that happens. Could you listen to a few minutes of natural conversation each day? Could you keep a list of common expressions people use in meetings or casual chats? Could you practice repeating those expressions out loud so that your mouth gets used to saying them? It's not about learning everything at once. It's about building small tools. Tools that live inside you. Tools you can carry into real situations. And remember, you're not starting from zero. You already know more than you think. The fact that you're here, listening to this, means you care. And that's powerful. That means you're paying attention. That means you're on the path. And that means you're capable of change. So let me ask you this. What's one thing you can do today to prepare yourself for your next conversation in English? Just one thing. One small step. Maybe it's choosing a podcast episode to listen to twice this week. Maybe it's practicing the sentence, "Could you say that again more?" slowly. Maybe it's writing down one expression you hear in this episode and saying it to yourself 5 times. Whatever it is, make it simple. Make it doable. And most of all, make it yours. Because learning English isn't about performing for other people. It's about building the tools that help you feel free, feel present, feel proud of your voice, just as it is right now, and just as it will continue to grow. Let me introduce you to someone else I deeply admire, David. David is a software developer. He's not the type of person who likes to be in the spotlight. He's calm, focused, thoughtful. He's the kind of person who thinks carefully before he speaks. And when it comes to technology, he really knows what he's talking about. He's worked on some incredible projects. But even with all his knowledge, there was one thing that made him nervous: speaking in English during meetings. David works in a company where most of the communication happens in English. Emails, project updates, weekly calls, everything is in English. He can read it. He can understand it. But speaking? That's where things felt different for him, especially when he had to explain something technical. He always worried that his English wasn't clear enough, or that he would lose his train of thought, or worse, that people would misunderstand him completely. One day, his manager asked him to present a new software feature to the entire team. It wasn't just a small group. This was a company-wide meeting with colleagues from different countries, including native speakers. As soon as David saw the calendar invite, his stomach tightened. He felt pressure building inside. All these what-if questions started flooding his mind. What if I forget something? What if I don't know how to answer a question? What if I sound unprofessional? That night, he couldn't sleep well. He kept replaying different scenarios in his head. He even considered asking someone else to do the presentation instead. But deep down, he knew this was something he had to face. He knew that if he avoided it now, the fear would only grow stronger. So he made a decision, not to be perfect, but to prepare. The next day, David started writing down what he wanted to say, not as a script, but as key points. He didn't try to memorize everything. He focused on clarity. What is the main idea I want to communicate? He asked himself. What is the most important thing my team needs to understand? He realized that if he tried to sound too formal or complicated, it would only make things harder. So he simplified. He chose simple language, everyday words, and short, direct sentences. Instead of saying, the functionality will be optimized via iterative modifications, he wrote, we'll improve this feature step by step. Instead of saying, we aim to enhance the user interface dynamically, he said, we want to make the design easier to use. He practiced explaining the feature to himself out loud. Not once or twice, but over and over again. At first, he felt awkward. Talking to himself in English felt strange. But soon, the sentences started to feel smoother. The ideas became more connected. He stopped translating in his head. He started thinking in English. Just a little, but enough to feel the difference. Then he took it one step further. He asked a colleague, a trusted friend at work, to listen to a practice run. He told her, I just want to see if what I'm saying makes sense. They spent 20 minutes going over the explanation. She asked a few questions. David answered. And for the first time, he realized that he could do this. He didn't have to be perfect. He just had to be clear and prepared. The day of the presentation came. David was still nervous. Of course he was. That's normal. But he walked into the room with his notes in hand and took a deep breath. As he began to speak, something shifted. He was focused, not on himself, but on his message. He wasn't trying to impress anyone. He was just trying to explain something he understood well in a language he was learning to trust. He spoke slowly, clearly, and with intention. His team followed along. Some people asked questions and he answered without rushing. When he didn't know a word, he found another way to say what he meant. And when the meeting ended, his manager said, Great job, David. That was very clear. David told me later, it wasn't perfect, but it felt real. I could finally express myself without hiding behind silence. And that's something I want you to hear. Sometimes we think we have to wait until we're 100% fluent before we can speak in public. But the truth is, you don't have to be fluent. You have to be prepared. You have to be willing to try, willing to practice, willing to show up, even if your voice shakes a little. And here's the part that matters most. David didn't become confident overnight. He became confident through action. Not by studying more grammar, but by practicing something real. He took one moment that scared him and used it as fuel to grow. So now I ask you, can you relate to David? Have you ever been asked to speak in English and felt like running away from it? Maybe you were asked to introduce yourself in a meeting. Maybe you were expected to explain something, or give your opinion, or answer a question on the spot. Did you feel your heartbeat speed up? Did you feel your thoughts disappear as soon as the attention turned to you? That's not weakness. That's fear. And fear shows up when something matters to us. So don't ignore that feeling. Look at it. Sit with it. Ask yourself, what's one thing I can do next time to feel more prepared? Maybe it's practicing out loud. Maybe it's simplifying your language. Maybe it's choosing one phrase like, let me explain this simply, and saying it until it becomes natural. Because when you prepare like David did, you don't eliminate fear, but you reduce it. You replace it with structure, with language you've rehearsed, with calm, inside your mind. You may not feel completely ready, but you'll feel ready enough to try. And that's where confidence begins. David didn't have a secret talent for public speaking. What he had was a method built on 3 simple pillars: clarity, repetition, and calm thinking. That's what helped him go from panic to presence. And these are exactly the tools I want you to notice and practice for yourself. You see, most English learners think that speaking well means knowing fancy words, long sentences, and technical vocabulary. But what you really need, especially in real communication, is clarity. David didn't try to sound like a native speaker. He didn't aim for flawless grammar. He aimed for clear ideas. And to get there, he simplified his language on purpose. He used simple verbs, short nouns. He chose the active voice. He practiced speaking slowly. And he used pauses, those powerful, quiet moments, to breathe and think. Let me tell you what that looked like. Instead of saying, "It is important to ensure compatibility across all user interfaces prior to launch," he practiced saying, "We need to make sure the design works well on every device before we launch." That's it. Same idea, but much easier to say, easier to understand, less stress, more focus on the message. David also avoided memorizing a script. That's something many learners try to do, and then feel crushed when they forget one word. But David didn't try to memorize. He practiced expressing the same idea in different ways. That gave him flexibility. If he forgot a word, he used another. If he lost his train of thought, he had a mental structure to come back to. Let's break that structure down. First, he started by identifying the goal of his presentation. What do I want people to understand? Not what do I want to say, but what do I want them to remember? That simple shift helped him focus on the audience, not himself. Then he wrote down 3 main points. Just 3. Not everything. Just the essentials. And for each point, he thought of one example or comparison that would make it easier to follow. He practiced transitions between his points. For example, now let me show you how this works in real time. Here's the second part of the feature we added. To sum it up, the design is now faster and easier to use. Those phrases are short, but when practiced, they become anchors. You can rely on them. You don't have to invent new words every time. You build your own little toolkit of useful expressions and use them again and again until they feel natural. David practiced these small sections out loud, often while walking around or making coffee. He would repeat just one line at a time. He wasn't reciting. He was reinforcing. The more he said it, the more it stuck in his brain. That's what repetition does. Not boring repetition, but intentional spoken repetition with real meaning behind it. Let me pause here and invite you to try something with me right now. Repeat this. Phrase with me slowly. I want to speak clearly, not perfectly. One more time. I want to speak clearly, not perfectly. Feel that shift? That's the mindset David chose. And that's the mindset you can choose every time you open your mouth to speak English. There's something else David learned during this process: the value of a calm mind. Before the meeting, instead of reviewing every detail, he took a short walk. He focused on his breath. He reminded himself, I'm prepared. I've practiced. I can do this. Not because he was trying to trick himself into feeling confident, but because he had done the work. He had practiced. He had rehearsed. And he had accepted that it didn't have to be perfect to be valuable. So let me ask you something personal. What would it look like for you to speak in English with more calm and clarity? Not with more grammar rules in your head, but with more ease in your voice. Maybe it's taking 5 minutes before a conversation just to say your key points out loud. Maybe it's choosing 3 simple expressions you can reuse in every situation. Let me explain. Here's what I mean. That's a great question. You don't need to start from 0 every time. You can build your confidence in layers. One phrase, one sentence, one mini presentation at a time. You can record yourself. You can listen to how you sound. You can even laugh a little when it feels weird. Because yes, it feels weird at first. But that's part of learning. David told me that the biggest surprise wasn't how well the presentation went. It was how good it felt to finally express his ideas without fear. He realized that he didn't need anyone's permission to feel like a good English speaker. He just needed practice, intention, and the decision to stop hiding behind silence. And you know what else? His team started asking him more questions after that. Not because he was suddenly perfect, but because they felt his clarity. They trusted his way of explaining. And that's something you can earn too. Not by speaking more, but by speaking better. Simpler, slower, more purposefully. You don't have to wait until you feel ready. You become ready by speaking. You don't have to impress people. You have to help them understand you. That's it. That's the whole goal. So here's your invitation. Take one small idea you want to share. Something from your work, your life, your interests, and explain it out loud in English. Just to yourself. No pressure. Then do it again. Try saying it another way. Use simple words. Use short sentences. Use your real voice. That's where fluency begins. Not in perfection, but in preparation. Not in speed, but in clarity. Not in fear, but in practice. Now that David had gone through his presentation, something changed inside him. Not just because the meeting was a success, but because he had proven something to himself. Preparation works, and speaking doesn't need to be perfect. It needs to be real. But what happened next is what truly matters. David didn't stop practicing after that meeting. He decided to keep going. Why? Because he realized something powerful. This wasn't about one moment. It was about building a voice in English that he could trust every day. That's exactly what I want for you too. You don't need a stage. You don't need an audience. You need a process, a practice plan, one that fits your life and helps you grow in small, steady steps. So let me show you what that looks like. David created a weekly speaking routine with 3 parts: repeat, rephrase, reflect. You can do it too, even with just 10 minutes a day. Let's start with repeat. Every day, David would choose one sentence from a podcast, a video, or a conversation he had heard. Just one sentence. He would listen to it a few times and then repeat it out loud slowly. At first, he focused on the rhythm and pronunciation. He wasn't rushing. He was trying to feel how the sentence moved in his mouth. For example, a sentence like, "We're still working." On the final version, "But it should be ready soon." He would repeat it 3 or 4 times, with pauses, with clarity, with intention. Why repeat? Because your brain and your mouth need to practice together. Listening is not enough. Reading is not enough. You need your voice involved. Repeating helps connect the sound, the structure, and the confidence, all in one. Now let's talk about rephrase. This was David's favorite part. After repeating the sentence, he would try saying the same idea in a different way. No script, no translation, just his version of the message. If the original sentence was, "We're still working on the final version, but it should be ready soon," he might rephrase it as, "It's not finished yet, but we expect to complete it soon." Or, "We're almost done. It just needs a few final touches." This part trains your brain to think in English. You stop depending on memorized phrases. You start creating your own expressions. And you also become more flexible. If one word disappears from your mind, you know another way to explain it. That's real fluency, not perfect memory, but strong flexibility. The third part of David's plan was reflect. At the end of each week, he would ask himself a simple question. What's one thing I said in English that felt easier this week? He didn't focus on mistakes. He didn't look for what went wrong. He looked for progress. That one sentence he said during a call. That one moment he responded faster than usual. That one phrase he used. Without thinking. Those small wins are what keep the motivation alive. And this is something I want to highlight for you. Don't wait to feel fluent to feel proud. Celebrate every little step. You repeated a sentence today? That's a step. You found a new way to say something? That's progress. You spoke without checking a translator? That's huge. Progress is not loud, it's quiet, but powerful. Just like David's story. Now let me give you a simple structure you can copy for your own practice this week. You don't need anything fancy. Just your voice, a few minutes, and your commitment. Monday to Friday. Choose one sentence from an audio or video you enjoy. Repeat it out loud 3 to 5 times, slowly and clearly. Then, rephrase it using your own words at least once. If you can, record yourself. Listen. Notice your progress. Weekend. Choose one of the sentences you practiced. Try to build a short story or example around it. Speak freely for 30 seconds to 1 minute. Reflect. What felt natural? What felt difficult? This is not homework. It's training. And the best part? You can do it anywhere. In the shower, while cooking, during a walk, while waiting for the bus. Your voice doesn't need permission to grow. It just needs repetition and care. Let me ask you now, what's one sentence you heard recently that you can repeat today? Think about it. Say it out loud now. Go ahead. I'm here with you. Speak it slowly. Speak it again. Now. Try a new version of it. Doesn't matter if it's not perfect. Just try. That's what David did. That's what I do. And that's what you can do too. This process isn't about becoming someone else. It's about becoming you in English. Your thoughts, your voice, your message. If you've ever felt stuck because you couldn't find the right word, try this routine. If you've ever stayed silent in a meeting because you were afraid of making a mistake, try this routine. If you've ever walked away from a conversation thinking, I wish I had said something, this routine is for you. David still uses this exact method, even now, even after his confidence grew, not because he has to, but because it keeps his English alive. It keeps his ideas flowing. It keeps him connected to the language. It's like brushing your teeth. You do it not just to fix something, but to keep everything working smoothly. You don't need to study more to speak better. You need to speak more, slowly, clearly, regularly. One sentence at a time, one small moment at a time. Let me remind you again. You already have the ability to grow. You already have the strength. What you need is to show up every day with one voice, your voice. Let me tell you about a moment David had a few weeks after that presentation. He was in the office kitchen pouring himself a cup of coffee. One of his coworkers walked in and casually asked, "Hey, what are you working on this week?" Now, in the past, David might have smiled, said, "Oh, just work stuff," and moved on. But this time, he used the moment. He paused for a second, then said, "I'm finalizing the draft for the client proposal. We're presenting on Thursday." It was just a simple answer, but it felt good. Why? Because that short response used real vocabulary. It connected to his day, and it flowed. All those daily practices, repeating, rephrasing, reflecting, they showed up in that tiny, real-life moment. That's what I want to remind you. You don't practice speaking just to prepare for tests or interviews. You do it to make everyday English feel easier, more natural. Here's the truth. Most opportunities to speak English won't come with a microphone or a spotlight. They'll come when someone asks, "How's your day?" Or when you want to join a group chat in English, or even when you comment on a video or write a quick email. And if you've been practicing the habit of speaking, even just to yourself, those moments will feel less intimidating. Let's take a very simple example. Imagine you hear the sentence, "It's been a hectic week, but I'm finally catching up." You can repeat it, slowly, a few times. You feel the rhythm. Then you rephrase. "This week's been crazy, but I'm getting back on track." Or, "I've had a busy few days, but now things are under control." That flexibility gives you confidence. It's no longer about memorizing the sentence. It's about owning the idea. David told me about another day when he had to leave a voicemail for a client. It wasn't a long message. Just something like, "Hi, this is David from Atlas. I just wanted to confirm our meeting for Thursday at 10 a.m. If you need to reschedule, feel free to reply or call me back. Have a great day." Nothing dramatic, but he practiced that kind of sentence often, repeating similar phrases, changing them slightly. So when the moment came, his brain didn't freeze. His mouth didn't panic. The words were already familiar. This is what I call micro practice for macro impact. You practice in small ways, at home, in the car, walking to the store, and it prepares you for real interactions, one sentence at a time. Let me give you a few more situations where you can try this. Imagine you're writing an email in English. After writing, take one of your sentences and say it out loud. Then try saying it differently. For example, email. "I hope this message finds you well." You say, "Hope you're doing well." Then try, "Just checking in. I hope everything's going great." Every variation trains your fluency muscle. Or imagine you're watching a video, and someone says, "Let's touch base next week." You repeat it. Then rephrase, "Let's talk again next week." Or, "Let's follow up in a few days." You're not memorizing, you're learning how to adapt. David did this while walking his dog. He would listen to a podcast for 5 minutes, then pause. Pick a sentence. Repeat it out loud, then rephrase it 2 different ways. Some days he only spoke 3 sentences total, but he spoke. And over time, his speaking became less about courage and more about habit. I want to tell you something important now. Fluency doesn't arrive. It accumulates. One sentence repeated, one idea rephrased, one small reflection, day after day. You don't need to wait for a perfect moment to speak. You can create those moments. There's a woman I once worked with. Her name is Anya from Poland. She told me she used to feel embarrassed speaking English, even though she understood everything. Her biggest fear? Sounding silly. So she started practicing this method quietly at home. She would read short messages aloud, then try saying them differently in her own voice. After 3 months, she said something beautiful to me. She said, "Julia, I still make mistakes, but I'm not silent anymore." That's what practice gives you, not perfection, but permission. And the best part? You don't need a teacher beside you every time. You can guide yourself. Your own voice is the best coach. It gives you feedback. It helps you feel where you pause, where you struggle, where you improve. You become the observer and the speaker. That's powerful. So next time you're brushing your teeth, repeat a sentence you remember from earlier that day. Next time you're walking home, say out loud what your plans are for the evening, in English. And when you're cooking, describe each step in simple English. I'm chopping onions. Now I'm adding garlic. I'll boil the rice next. These are your practice moments. They're everywhere. You just have to see them. David now keeps a little notebook on his desk. Every day, he writes one sentence he wants to use more confidently. And then he speaks it. No pressure, no test, just intention. One sentence at a time. Let me remind you, you don't need hours of practice. You need moments of presence. You don't need to be fluent today. You need to be consistent. Fluency will follow. So tell me, what's one sentence you'll practice today? Today I want to give you something small. Something that might seem too simple, too easy. But I promise, it's not. It's one sentence. Just one. One sentence you will hear. One sentence you will say. One sentence you will keep with you all day. That's your challenge. Let me explain. Every day we are surrounded by English. Online, in music, in videos, in podcasts, in short reels or long interviews. But we often scroll, tap, skip. We consume, but we don't pause. So today, I want you to pause. Choose one short audio. It can be from a video, a podcast, a TV show, a movie clip, even an Instagram reel. Anything. But just one. Now here's what I want you to do with that one audio. First, listen to it once. Then again. Then a third time, but slower. Really hear the rhythm, the pronunciation, the feeling behind the sentence. Then say it. Out loud. Don't whisper. Don't mumble. Speak it clearly. Give it breath. Let it move through you. And then repeat. After that, try to say it from memory. Just one sentence. Close your eyes. Say it again. Then open your eyes. Write it down. Say it again. This is not boring. Repetition. It's you forming a relationship with one piece of language, not just words, sound, memory, confidence. Let me show you how I do it. I was listening to a podcast yesterday. A woman said, "I used to be afraid of making mistakes, but now I see them as progress." That sentence stopped me. I played it back. Then again. Then I said it aloud. I used to be afraid of making mistakes, but now I see them as progress. I repeated it while making coffee. I whispered it while walking. I said it. Slowly. I said it fast. I felt it. Then I changed it slightly. I was scared to mess up, but now I know it's part of the process. And then another version. I don't fear mistakes anymore. They help me grow. See? One sentence became 3. One idea became flexible. My brain and my mouth were working together. That's the challenge I'm giving you now. Not a big grammar lesson. Not a long vocabulary list. Just one sentence from one piece of audio. Make it yours. Turn it around. Speak it with power. Whisper it gently. Practice it in your own voice until it feels natural. David did this when he was watching a documentary. He heard a line. Sometimes change feels uncomfortable, but it's necessary. He liked it. So he saved that sentence. He repeated it. And for the next 2 days, he played with that sentence while walking to work. He said it to himself before meetings. He rephrased it. He built confidence. Not because he memorized something, but because he lived inside that sentence. You don't need a long list. You don't need pressure. You need to slow down. One sentence. One moment. That's where fluency starts, not with speed, but with intention. Sometimes I hear learners say, "But Julia, I want to speak fast. I want to be fluent like a native speaker." And I understand. But here's something I always say. Fluency is not speed. It's comfort. It's control. It's knowing how to say something in your own way. And that comes from small steps, from moments like this. So go ahead. Choose your sentence. Maybe it's from a TED Talk. Maybe it's from a TV character you like. Maybe it's from a motivational reel. Doesn't matter. What matters is that you listen deeply, speak it with care, and keep it with you. And if you're ready to go further, do what Anya did. She had a small notebook. Every day, she wrote one sentence she heard in English. Just one. Then she wrote 2 ways to say the same thing. Then she practiced saying all 3 out loud. Every day. 5 minutes. That's it. After 2 months, she was speaking more confidently than ever before. This method works. You're not collecting random vocabulary. You're not trying to memorize scripts. You're building your own voice, and your voice deserves to be heard. Let's reflect together now. What sentence stayed with you recently? Think about a podcast, a video, or a conversation you heard in English. Was there something someone said that made you pause? Something that made you think, "I want to speak like that"? Good. That's your sentence. Go find it, play it, pause, repeat, say it, live with it. That's your gentle challenge. 1 audio, 1 sentence, 1 voice, yours. So you accepted the gentle challenge. 1 audio, 1 sentence. That's a fantastic start. But now I want to invite you to take that same sentence and make it your own in a new way. Not just repeating or rephrasing it, but expanding it, playing with it, and using it creatively. This step is where your English really starts to grow beyond the words themselves. Let me explain what I mean. When you repeat a sentence many times, you get comfortable with its sound and meaning. When you rephrase it, you start to think flexibly in English. Now, when you expand on that sentence, you're adding your own ideas, feelings, or experiences. You're making the language alive. This is how conversations happen in real life. Not by reciting, but by responding, connecting, and building on what you hear. Here's how David practiced this step. After mastering a I sentence from a podcast, he would ask himself, "What does this mean to me? And how can I talk about this in my own words?" For example, if the sentence was, "Sometimes change feels uncomfortable, but it's necessary," David might expand by saying, "I remember when I switched jobs last year. At first, it was really stressful. I wasn't sure if I made the right decision. But now I see that change helped me grow and learn new skills." You don't need to speak perfectly to do this. You just need to speak honestly. Use your own stories, ideas, and feelings to practice. This makes the language personal and meaningful. Another way to expand is by asking questions related to the sentence. If your sentence is, "I used to be afraid of making mistakes, but now I see them as progress," you could ask yourself, "What mistakes have I learned from? How did I feel when I made them? What changed my mind about mistakes?" Answer these questions aloud, in English, using simple sentences. This helps you practice speaking naturally and thoughtfully. You can also try short role plays. Imagine a conversation where you use your sentence. For example, if your sentence is about change, pretend you're talking to a friend who's afraid to try something new. You might say, "I know change is scary, but I learned that it's necessary. It helps us grow." Playing these roles activates your speaking muscles in new ways. David found that these expansions made him less afraid of pauses or ums because he was focusing on meaning, not perfection. He became a storyteller, not just a speaker. I want you to try this with me now. Think of the sentence you're working on. Say it once aloud. Then ask yourself, "How does this connect to my life?" Pause, then speak freely for 20 to 30 seconds. Don't worry about mistakes. Just speak. Feel the words. Let your ideas flow. If you want, record this moment. Listen later. Notice how your speaking sounds. Celebrate what you did well. Notice one thing to improve next. Time. This creative practice is also great for improving your listening. When you play with language actively, your brain starts to notice similar patterns in conversations around you. You become more prepared to understand and respond in real time. And here's a little secret. Practicing creativity in speaking doesn't require hours. Just a few focused minutes daily make a difference. Quality over quantity. Consistency over perfection. Remember, the goal here is not to sound like a native speaker overnight. It's to be understood, to feel comfortable with your voice, and to enjoy speaking English more and more. So your next steps are simple. Choose your sentence from the audio you picked. Repeat it aloud slowly, several times. Rephrase it in 2 or 3 different ways. Expand on it by sharing a personal story, asking yourself questions, or imagining a conversation. Speak freely for at least 20 seconds. Record yourself if you can. Listen with kindness. If you make this a habit, you'll notice your confidence growing. Your voice will sound more natural. You'll start to think in English without translating. You'll stop fearing mistakes because you'll see them as part of your journey. David's journey didn't end with his first presentation. It continues every day with small, creative practices like this. That's what fluency looks like in real life. Ongoing, patient, playful. Before I finish this section, I want to remind you, it's okay to feel awkward at first. That's part of learning. Your brain and your mouth are making new connections. It takes time. Be patient. Be kind to yourself. And remember, your voice is unique. Your ideas matter. English is just a tool for sharing your story with the world. So, what's the sentence you're going to expand today? How will you make it yours? Take a deep breath and give it a try now. I'm rooting for you. Let's talk about something that often feels challenging for English learners. Staying consistent. We all start motivated, excited to learn, but after a while, life gets busy, distractions come, and suddenly, that daily practice becomes a struggle. I want you to know this is normal, and it's something we can work on together. David's story is a perfect example. After his first successful presentation, he felt energized and proud. But he didn't stop there. He knew that if he wanted to keep improving, he needed a routine he could stick to, no matter how busy life got. So he created a simple, flexible practice plan that fit his schedule. What helped David most was small, achievable goals. Instead of trying to practice for hours every day, he set a goal of just 10 minutes a day. 10 minutes of focused speaking practice, no matter what. And if some days were harder, he allowed himself to do less, but never 0. Even 5 minutes was okay, because that kept the habit alive. This is the key. It's not about perfection or hours. It's about showing up every day, even if it's just a little bit. Because when you practice regularly, even for short bursts, your brain keeps building connections. Your muscles keep learning the rhythm of English. Your confidence grows bit by bit. Now, how do you make sure you keep this up? Here are some strategies that worked for David and many learners I know. Make it part of your daily routine. Find a specific time that works for you. Morning, lunchtime, before bed. And stick to it. For David, it was during his commute. For you, maybe it's during breakfast or while doing chores. Use reminders. Set an alarm or a note on your phone. Sometimes we forget simply because we get distracted. A little reminder can bring you back. Keep it fun and meaningful. Practice with content you enjoy. Podcasts, songs, videos, or stories that interest you. When you like what you're listening to, practice feels less like work and more like play. Celebrate small wins. Did you say one sentence out loud today? Great. Did you use a new phrase in conversation? Awesome. Reward yourself. Mentally. These little celebrations keep motivation alive. Connect with others. If possible, find a language buddy, join a community, or participate in online groups. Sharing your progress and challenges makes the journey less lonely and more motivating. David also kept a journal where he wrote about his daily practice. Not in perfect English, just his thoughts, struggles, and small successes. Writing helped him reflect and see progress over time, which kept him motivated when things got tough. Now, I want to share a story about another learner, Maria, from Brazil. Maria was shy and nervous to speak English because she feared making mistakes in front of others. But she committed to 10 minutes of practice every day, repeating sentences from videos and rephrasing them. Over time, she noticed she could understand more in meetings and even started speaking up during group calls. What helped Maria stay motivated was tracking her progress visually. She used a calendar and put a sticker every day she practiced. Seeing the chain of stickers motivated her to keep going. This kind of consistent small effort is what leads to real progress. Fluency isn't a sprint, it's a marathon, and it's a journey you take one step at a time. I want to remind you of something important. If you miss a day, or even a few days, it's okay. Don't let that stop you. What matters most is getting back on track. The habit you build over months and years is more powerful than a few missed days. Be kind to yourself, and keep moving forward. To help you stay on track, here's a little challenge. Start a practice journal today. Write down one sentence you practiced, one new word you liked, or one moment when you felt proud speaking English. Do this every day or every few days. It will help you see your progress clearly. Also, remember to revisit your favorite sentences or phrases regularly. David revisits his sentence list weekly, refreshing his memory and adding new ones. This keeps his English active and alive. Consistency is about creating connection. Connection with the language, with your goals, and with your own voice. When you feel connected, motivation flows naturally. So, what's one small step you can take today to build your English practice habit? Maybe it's setting a reminder, finding a favorite podcast, or writing your first journal entry. Whatever it is, start now. Start small. Start with intention. Because every step forward is progress. Every moment you speak English out loud is a victory. Every day you show up for yourself is a step closer to your fluency goal. And remember, I'm here with you. We are a community. You are not alone on this journey. One of the biggest challenges I hear from learners is about listening. Julia, I understand words, but when people speak fast, I get lost. Or, I can read English fine, but listening feels like a different language. If you've ever felt this way, you're not alone. Listening is a skill that takes time, patience, and smart practice. Let me share a story about a friend of mine, Luis, from Mexico. Luis works in customer service, and his job requires him to understand different accents and quick conversations every day. When he first started, he felt overwhelmed. Calls came in, people spoke quickly, and he caught only parts of the message. Luis decided to take control. He set a daily habit. Every morning, he listened to 5 minutes of an English podcast focused on daily conversations. Then he listened again, slower, trying to catch every word. He also wrote down new phrases he heard. Slowly, his listening skills improved. Luis's progress came not from trying to understand everything immediately, but from consistent exposure and smart listening. That's what I want to talk about now: how to listen smart. First, accept that you will not understand every word, and that's okay. Listening is about catching the meaning and the feeling of what's being said. When you listen, focus on the big picture. What's the topic? What emotions do you hear? Are people happy, worried, excited? This helps your brain guess the meaning, even if some words are unclear. Next, practice listening in layers. Start with shorter audios you like, 5 to 10 minutes. Listen the first time without subtitles or transcripts. Try to understand the main idea. Then listen again with subtitles or transcript. This helps connect sounds with written words and builds your vocabulary naturally. Use content that interests you. Luis loved cooking shows, so he chose English videos about recipes. When you listen to topics you care about, your brain works harder to understand because you're curious and motivated. Try to imitate the speakers you hear. Pause after a sentence and say it out loud, matching their rhythm and intonation. This is called shadowing, and it trains your ear and mouth at the same time. Luis found that shadowing helped him improve both his listening and pronunciation. It's like dancing with the language, matching the beats and movements. Another trick is to listen for keywords. In conversations, certain words carry the main meaning: names, numbers, places, actions. Even if you miss small connecting words like the, and, or but, you can still understand the message by focusing on these keywords. Also, don't forget to practice active listening. This means not just hearing sounds, but really focusing your attention. Avoid multitasking when you practice listening. Give your full focus to the audio, even if it's just for a few minutes. This builds your listening muscles. Luis also practiced by listening to the same audio multiple times over a few days. Each time, he understood more details and felt more confident. Repetition is key. Now, I want to invite you to try a simple listening exercise with me. Find a short audio clip, maybe a conversation from a podcast or a scene from a movie. Listen once without reading, then listen again with subtitles or a transcript. Write down 3 new words or phrases you heard. Then try to say one of the sentences out loud. You can pause and repeat it. This simple exercise trains your ear, expands your vocabulary, and boosts your confidence. Remember, improving your listening takes time. It's a journey. Be patient with yourself. Celebrate every small step you take. Each moment you listen to English, you're training your brain to understand better. I also want to share a quick tip about using English naturally once you understand it. Sometimes we understand well but freeze when it's time to speak. This happens because we focus too much on perfect grammar or pronunciation. Instead, try to use simple sentences. Use phrases and expressions you hear often. Think about English as a tool for communication, not a test. For example, when someone asks you, "How was your weekend?" you don't need a perfect answer. A simple response like, "It was good, thanks. I went to the park and relaxed," is enough. Practicing these everyday phrases helps you sound natural and comfortable. David, whom I talked about earlier, practiced this by learning common expressions used in meetings and social conversations. He wrote them down, practiced saying them, and used them whenever he could. This helped him connect with others and feel more relaxed speaking. Finally, remember that listening and speaking are connected. When you improve your listening, your speaking gets better too, because you start to hear the language patterns, the natural flow, and the way people express ideas. The more you listen actively, the easier it becomes to speak naturally. So, to sum up this section, listen daily to short, interesting audios. Don't try to understand everything at once. Focus on the main ideas and emotions. Practice shadowing to improve both listening and speaking. Focus on keywords to grasp meaning. Use active listening and avoid multitasking. Repeat audios to deepen understanding. Practice simple, common phrases to speak naturally. You're building a strong foundation, one moment of listening at a time. Keep going. Your brain is adapting. Your ear is getting sharper. Your English is becoming more natural. One of the biggest shifts in learning English is moving from translating in your head to thinking directly in English. This might sound simple, but it's actually one of the hardest steps. When you hear English, your brain wants to translate every word into your native language. But this slows you down and makes speaking feel harder. Let me share a story about Mia, a learner from Italy. Mia was very good at reading and writing English, but when she tried to speak, she often hesitated because she was translating in her mind. One day, she decided to try a different approach. She started to think in English during small daily moments. For example, while waiting in line at the grocery store, Mia would look around and describe to herself in English what she saw. "There's a man with a red jacket. The woman in front of me is checking her phone." This simple habit helped her train her brain to use English naturally, without translation. This is what I want to encourage you to do too. Start small, with simple descriptions and thoughts in English. You don't need to speak out loud all the time, but practicing thinking in English primes your mind to speak faster and more naturally when the moment comes. Now, how do you practice this? Here are some easy exercises you can try today. Describe your surroundings. Look around and silently describe what you see in English. For example, if you're at home, say to yourself, "I see a blue chair. There is a window with sunlight coming in." This trains your mind to use English vocabulary in real time. Narrate your actions. While cooking, cleaning, or doing simple tasks, narrate your steps in English inside your head, or out loud if you can. "I'm chopping the onions now. I need to boil some water." Ask yourself questions and answer them. Think of simple questions and try to answer in English. For example, "What will I eat today? What do I like about my job?" This helps prepare your brain to form sentences quickly. Use your phone or a notebook. Write down some thoughts or sentences you thought during the day in English. This connects your thinking with writing and helps build vocabulary. Mia's daily practice of thinking in English transformed her speaking skills. She said that after a few weeks, she noticed she could reply faster in conversations and didn't feel the heavy pause of translation anymore. Her confidence soared. Another important tip is to slow down your speaking at first. Thinking in English might be new and feel awkward. That's okay. Speak slowly and focus on expressing your ideas clearly, not quickly. Over time, your speed will increase naturally. Let me give you a simple exercise I often do. Pick a short video or podcast clip. Listen carefully. Then close your eyes and try to repeat the main idea silently in English. If you can, say it out loud. Then try to expand by adding your own thoughts. For example, if the clip talks about traveling, you might say, "I love traveling because I can meet new people and learn about different cultures." This practice connects listening, thinking, and speaking in a natural flow. It trains your brain to process English without interruption. Remember, this shift to thinking in English doesn't happen overnight. It takes patience and practice. Be gentle with yourself if your mind switches back to your native language sometimes. That's normal. Just bring yourself back to English gently and keep going. David, whom we talked about before, also practiced thinking in English this way. Before meetings, he would spend a few minutes mentally rehearsing what he wanted to say. He pictured the conversation and practiced responses in English. This preparation helped him feel ready and calm. I want to encourage you to create your own mental rehearsal moments. Spend a few minutes each day imagining conversations in English. Think about what you might say at work, with friends, or while ordering food. This mental exercise strengthens your speaking muscles. And here's a secret. The more you practice thinking in English, the more natural it feels to speak. Your brain stops working as a translator and becomes a creator of English ideas. Before I finish this section, I want to remind you that mistakes are part of this process. When you think and speak in English, you'll make errors, and that's how you learn. Celebrate your courage to try, even when it's imperfect. So, your gentle challenge for today. Spend 5 minutes thinking in English. Describe your environment, narrate your actions, or mentally rehearse a conversation. Notice how your mind feels. If you lose focus, that's okay. Just gently return to English thoughts. You're building a powerful skill. Your brain is adapting. Your voice is getting ready. And remember, I'm here with you every step of the way. One of the most powerful ways to improve your English fluency is through stories. Stories help us connect words, phrases, and ideas in a meaningful way. They make language come alive, not just as vocabulary lists or grammar rules, but as real experiences. Let me tell you about my friend Emma. Emma is from Spain, and she started learning English by listening to stories and podcasts, just like this one. She loved stories about everyday life, people going to the market, meeting friends, or sharing their dreams. Instead of focusing only on grammar, she focused on the story itself. Emma's favorite story was about a man who wanted to start a small cafe. She listened to this story multiple times. First, she just tried to understand the big picture. Then she listened again, paying attention to new words and expressions. She even tried to retell the story in her own words, sometimes speaking aloud, sometimes writing it down. This storytelling practice made Emma's English more natural. She began to understand how sentences flow and how ideas connect. She also learned useful phrases she could use in her own conversations. Stories give context to the language. When you know the story, words become easier to remember because they're tied to feelings and images. And when you practice telling stories yourself, you build confidence and fluency. Now, I want to encourage you to use stories as part of your English practice. Here are some ideas. Listen to short stories or podcasts. Choose stories that interest you. Listen actively. Try to catch the main idea and new expressions. Retell the story in your own words. You can do this aloud or write it down. Don't worry about mistakes. Focus on sharing the story. Add your own details. Make the story your own by adding what you would do or think in that situation. Share stories with friends or in online groups. Talking about stories creates real conversations and helps you practice natural speaking. I remember Emma telling me once, "Julia, retelling stories makes me feel like I'm actually using English, not just studying it." That's exactly what I want for you. To feel like English is a living language you can play with and share. Real conversations are another important part of building fluency. Conversations are unpredictable. They don't follow a script, so practicing how to manage those moments is key. David, from our earlier stories, practiced conversations by joining small English clubs online. He learned how to ask for clarification when he didn't understand how to use filler phrases like, let me think, or that's a good question, and how to keep the conversation flowing naturally. Using filler phrases is a secret weapon for sounding natural. Native speakers often use words like, well, you know, actually, or so to connect ideas and buy time to think. Don't be afraid to use them. They help you sound fluent and relaxed. Here are some simple filler phrases to try. Well, I think, it's interesting because, actually, I'm not sure, but so what I'm trying to say is, try practicing these phrases aloud. Use them in your conversations or role plays. They're like little bridges that keep your speech smooth. Another tip is to practice asking questions during conversations. Questions keep the conversation going and show interest. Simple questions like, what do you think? Can you explain that? Or, how about you? Are very useful. Let me share a quick story. Maria, a learner I mentioned before, said that asking questions in her English practice helped her feel less nervous because it shifted the focus from her to the other person. It gave her time to prepare her answers and made conversations more enjoyable. So, to build fluency and natural English, use stories to connect language with meaning and emotion. Retell stories in your own words. Practice real conversations with filler phrases and questions. Don't be afraid of pauses. Use them to think and breathe. Remember, fluency is not about speaking perfectly. It's about connecting ideas clearly and naturally. It's about enjoying the language journey. Take a moment now and think about a story you like in English. How would you retell it? What would you add? How could you use filler phrases and questions if you were telling it to a friend? If you want, you can even write a short summary or record yourself telling the story. Then listen back and celebrate your progress. Every story you tell, every conversation you have, brings you closer to fluency. One of the biggest hurdles learners face is fear of making mistakes. I hear this all the time. Julia, I'm scared to speak because I might say something wrong. Or, I feel embarrassed when I can't find the right word. These feelings are very common, and I want you to know they are part of every learner's journey. Let me share a story about Carlos, a student from Argentina. Carlos was very worried about speaking in meetings because he feared making grammar mistakes. For a long time, he avoided speaking at all. But one day his manager encouraged him to share his ideas, saying, "It's okay to make mistakes. We want to hear your thoughts." That changed everything. Carlos started practicing speaking in small steps. Instead of aiming for perfect sentences, he focused on expressing his ideas clearly. When he made a mistake, he didn't stop. He kept going, learning from it. Over time, Carlos's confidence grew, and he became one of the most active speakers in his team. This story shows an important truth. Mistakes are not your enemy. They are your teachers. Here are some tips to help you overcome the fear of mistakes and build confidence. Change your mindset about mistakes. Mistakes are natural and necessary. Every time you make one, you're learning. Celebrate mistakes as progress. Practice speaking regularly, even if it's just to yourself. Talk about your day, your plans, or your thoughts. The more you speak, the more comfortable you become. Use simple language. Don't worry about complex grammar or fancy words. Clear and simple communication is what matters. Ask for feedback. If you can, ask friends, teachers, or language partners to gently correct you or suggest improvements. This helps you grow faster. Record yourself. Listening to your own voice helps you notice areas to improve and celebrate your strengths. Carlos also found it helpful to prepare key sentences or phrases before meetings or conversations. This gave him a foundation to build on and reduced anxiety. Another thing to remember is that everyone has moments of insecurity when speaking a new language. Even native speakers sometimes search for words or hesitate. It's part of human communication. So be patient with yourself. Now, how can you turn difficulties into learning opportunities? Here are some strategies. When you don't understand something, ask politely for repetition or clarification. For example, "Could you please say that again?" Or, "I'm sorry, I didn't catch that." This keeps communication going and helps you learn. When you forget a word, try to describe it or use simpler words. For example, if you forget refrigerator, you might say, "the big cold box in the kitchen." When you make a mistake, note it down and practice the correct version later. This turns errors into lessons. Maria, whom I mentioned before, kept a mistake notebook. Every time she noticed a mistake or a new phrase, she wrote it down and reviewed it regularly. This helped her improve steadily. Another important tip is to use positive self-talk. Instead of thinking, "I'm bad at English," say, "I'm learning every day." Positive thoughts build confidence and reduce anxiety. Remember, fluency isn't about perfection. It's about being able to express yourself, connect with others, and enjoy the language. Mistakes are part of the process, so don't let fear stop you. Try this simple exercise today. Pick a topic you enjoy, your hobby, your favorite movie, or your weekend plans. Speak about it aloud for 1 minute. Don't worry about mistakes. Just keep talking. Notice how it feels. If you get stuck, pause and try again. Each time you practice, your confidence grows. You can also practice with friends or language partners, sharing your thoughts and asking questions. Real conversations are the best way to learn and build confidence. I want to remind you, every great English speaker started where you are now. They made mistakes, felt nervous, and practiced patiently. You are on the same path. So keep speaking, keep trying, and keep learning. Your voice matters. Your story matters. English is a bridge to share them with the world. Expanding your vocabulary is one of the most exciting parts of learning English. New words open new doors. They let you express yourself more clearly, understand more conversations, and enjoy a wider variety of content. But how do you build your vocabulary naturally without memorizing long lists or feeling overwhelmed? Let me share a story about Anna, a learner from Russia. Anna used to try memorizing long vocabulary lists, but she quickly forgot the words because they didn't connect to anything meaningful. Then she started a new approach, learning words through real-life examples and stories. She read short articles and watched videos about topics she loved, like travel and cooking. When she met a new word, she wrote it down and tried to use it in sentences related to her life. For example, Anna learned the word delicious while watching a cooking show. Instead of just memorizing it, she practiced by saying, "This soup is delicious," when she cooked at home. This way, the word became part of her everyday language, and she remembered it better. You can do the same by focusing on words that relate to your interests and daily life. Here are some practical tips to help you expand your vocabulary naturally. Learn words in context. Try to learn new words in sentences or stories, not alone. This helps you understand how words are used and makes them easier to remember. Use a vocabulary notebook or app. Write down new words and phrases you find, along with example sentences. Review them regularly and try to use them in your speaking or writing. Practice using new words quickly. After learning a new word, try to say a sentence with it the same day. For instance, if you learn challenge, say, "I accepted a new challenge at work." Read and listen to content you enjoy. When you enjoy what you're reading or listening to, you'll naturally encounter new words and be more motivated to learn them. Use flashcards with images or example sentences. Visuals help your brain connect meaning and make learning more fun. Anna also found it helpful to group words by topics. For example, she made a list of words related to travel, flight, reservation, luggage, itinerary, and practiced them together. This made learning organized and meaningful. Let me tell you about another learner, Sam from Japan. Sam wanted to improve his vocabulary for everyday conversations. He decided to watch English TV shows with subtitles. Whenever he heard a new word, he paused, wrote it down, and looked up its meaning. Then he tried to use the word in his own sentences later. This active approach helped Sam remember new words and understand their natural use. One great way to practice vocabulary is through storytelling. When you tell a story, you naturally use words you know and stretch yourself to find new ones. For example, if you're telling a friend about your weekend, try to use words related to activities, places, feelings, or weather. You don't need to use difficult words, just the right words for your story. Remember, learning vocabulary is not about how many words you know, but how well you can use them. It's better to know fewer words and use them confidently than to know many words but not use them. Try this simple exercise. Pick 5 new words you learned recently. Write a short story or a few sentences. Using these words, speak it aloud or write it down. This practice helps move words from your passive memory to active use. Also, don't forget the power of repetition. Seeing, hearing, and using a word multiple times helps your brain remember it. Try to review your vocabulary regularly and use new words in your daily English practice. Lastly, be patient and kind with yourself. Building vocabulary is a journey. Some words will stick quickly, others take time. Celebrate every new word you learn and use. So what new words will you focus on this week? How will you practice using them in your life? Think about your interests and daily activities and find ways to connect English vocabulary to your world. You're creating your own English toolkit, one word at a time. Keep adding, practicing, and enjoying the process. One of the most common challenges learners tell me about is pronunciation and intonation. You might understand English well, but when it's time to speak, you worry about how you sound. Will people understand me? Will my accent be too strong? Will my sentences sound natural? I want to reassure you, sounding perfect is not the goal. The goal is to be understood and to express yourself clearly and confidently. But improving your pronunciation and intonation can help you communicate more naturally and feel more comfortable. Let me share a story about Amir, a learner from Egypt. Amir was worried that his accent would make it hard for others to understand him. But instead of trying to erase his accent, he focused on clear pronunciation and natural rhythm. He practiced small sounds, stress patterns, and sentence melody. Over time, Amir noticed that people understood him better, and he felt more confident speaking. Here are some practical tips to help you improve your pronunciation and intonation. Listen carefully to native speakers. Pay attention to how they pronounce sounds, stress syllables, and use melody in their sentences. You can do this by listening to podcasts, watching movies, or repeating after speakers in videos. Practice individual sounds that are difficult for you. English has some sounds that might not exist in your native language. Identify those sounds and practice them slowly, then in words, then in sentences. Use shadowing technique. Shadowing means listening to a sentence and repeating it immediately, trying to copy the speaker's rhythm, stress, and intonation as closely as possible. This helps train your mouth and ear. Record. Yourself speaking. Listen back and compare your pronunciation with native speakers. Notice what you can improve and what sounds good. Focus on sentence stress and intonation. English is a stress-timed language, which means some syllables are stressed more than others. Stressed words are usually content words like nouns, verbs, adjectives. Practice emphasizing these words to sound more natural. Practice linking sounds. Native speakers often link words together smoothly, which makes their speech flow. For example, "What are you doing?" sounds like, "What you doing?" Try to practice these connected sounds. Amir used these techniques daily. He chose short sentences from podcasts or movies and practiced shadowing. He paid special attention to rising and falling intonation, which helps express questions, statements, surprise, or doubt. For example, when asking a question, your voice usually rises at the end. "Are you coming?" But when making a statement, your voice falls, "I am coming." Practicing these patterns helps your speech sound more natural and engaging. Another helpful tip is to practice with tongue twisters. They help improve your mouth muscles and clarity. For example, "She sells seashells by the seashore." Start slowly, then increase speed as you get comfortable. Also, don't worry about your accent. Accents are part of who you are. Focus on clear communication and natural rhythm rather than perfection. Here's a simple exercise. Pick a short dialogue from a video or podcast. Listen carefully and then shadow the speakers. Record yourself and compare. Repeat until you feel comfortable with the pronunciation and intonation. Remember, improving pronunciation takes time and practice. Be patient and celebrate small improvements. Finally, practice speaking regularly with real people or language partners. Nothing beats real conversations for improving your pronunciation and building confidence. So, to summarize, listen and imitate native speakers carefully. Practice difficult sounds and sentence stress. Use shadowing and record yourself. Focus on intonation to express meaning naturally. Practice connected speech and tongue twisters. Be proud of your accent and focus on clear communication. Your voice is unique, and with practice, it will become clearer and more natural. Keep practicing and enjoy the journey of making English your own. As we come to the final part of today's episode, I want to talk about something that is just as important as practice and study, motivation. Learning English is a journey, not a destination. There will be days when you feel excited and days when you feel tired or discouraged. That's completely normal. What matters most is how you keep moving forward. One thing that has helped me, and many learners I know, is being part of a community. When you connect with others who share your goals and challenges, it's easier to stay motivated and inspired. You're not alone, and you can celebrate your progress together. Let me tell you about a learner named James from South Africa. James joined an English practice group online. At first, he was shy and worried about speaking, but as he participated in weekly chats and shared his stories, he felt more confident. The support and encouragement from the group made a big difference. James said, "Knowing others believe in me keeps me going even when learning feels hard." Our community here at the English Talk community is just like that, a place where you can practice, ask questions, share successes, and get support. Remember, every learner's journey is unique, and every step you take matters. Now, I want to leave you with a few tips to help you stay motivated in your English learning. Set small, achievable goals. Break your learning into manageable pieces. Celebrate each goal you reach, no matter how small. Track your progress. Keep a journal or a checklist. Seeing how far you've come can boost your confidence. Make learning fun. Use games, songs, movies, or stories that you enjoy. When you have fun, learning becomes easier. Take breaks when needed. If you feel overwhelmed, it's okay to rest. Come back refreshed and ready to learn. Connect with others. Join groups, attend events, or chat online. Sharing the journey makes it richer and more enjoyable. Before we finish, here's a challenge for you. This week, find a way to use English in a real-life situation. It could be a short conversation, writing a message, or even thinking aloud in English. Notice how it feels and celebrate that moment. And remember to share your experience with our community. Your story might inspire someone else who is just starting out or struggling. We all grow stronger together. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope these stories, tips, and practices inspire you to keep going. Your English journey is unique and valuable. Keep practicing, stay curious, and believe in yourself. I'm Julia, and I'm so happy to be part of your learning adventure. Until next time, keep speaking, keep listening, and keep shining.